So we're going to learn how to paint some roses. And so what you're going to do is take a dark pink color and make these little squiggles in a circular shape and then make thicker lines all around by pushing your brush down and kind of ending it in a point. And you don't want to make them too evenly, and you're just going to go around until you feel you have enough. And don't worry, we're not done yet, so even though it's not quite looking like a rose, it will. Now here I'm just adding more watercolor, the darker color, and while the other color is still wet and it's going to kind of bleed out and look more natural. So I'm going to just smooth it out a little bit, add a few more petals, make them not so blobby but rather lines. And later on I'm going to add in more darker pink, but right now I'm just going to leave it, and I'm going to do the same thing a little bit lower to make one other rose. So again, squiggling around with the darker color, then making the strokes thicker in a circle by pushing the brush down. This one might be a little bit bigger and facing from the front. That's just the way it came out. And then I'm going to add in that darker color. Now you can make these whatever color you like, but just the darker color goes in the middle. And I chose a pink. It looks a little different on the camera. It looks a little more orange on my paper. It actually does look more pink rather than orange. So again, I'm adding in the darker color there. Then when it dries, or when it's almost dry, I'll go in with the darker color again to darken up the center. So now I'm going to mix up a green. I would say kind of an olive green or a yellowish green, a lighter green, I would say. And we're going to make a bunch of leaves with that. So, and a bunch of stems. So just taking the tip of the brush, you make a curved line. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be a little bit broken up. Then make these little leaves that the rose has under its chin. I don't know what you call it. And we're going to just add a bunch of leaves with a lot of water by pressing the belly of the brush down and elongating with the tip. And you could leave more paint in some spots so that it'll look a little darker, make it lighter in some to vary the value. And again, and make some stems here. Again, you can choose whichever, also like a blue-greenish would look nice. So whichever green you prefer or you happen to have. And we're going to make some more stems later. We can add rosebuds. You could add as many leaves and stems as you'd like. You could, if you have a bigger piece of paper, because I have a small sketchbook, you could have more than 2 roses, however you'd like. The camera's not focusing very well today. Okay, I'm just mixing a bit of a darker green, so you could add some brown to make it darker, or you could add some hooker's green into the original green you were using to make it a little darker, just to make the leaves more interesting. I'm going to add more leaves because I think that looks kind of plain, but you could leave it like that if you were only using this rose, let's say, on a card. You could leave it like that and just darken the center when it dried. But I'm going to make it a little busier to fill up my page. Okay, so I'm going to add a few more of these stems or grasses or whatever you want to call them using the darker green. Add some more leaves. Those are a little too round. I might make them a little more square. Kind of like, you know how roses have those leaves that are a little jagged. Oh, and I added some kind of a more regular green, but I don't like how bright that is, so I'm actually adding some of that olive green, but just without adding too much water on top so that it doesn't look so bright green. And I'm gonna add some leaves all around in a bunch of places. And again, as you're painting, just so you know, the quality of the paper will affect your results. So as you can see, the paper I have, maybe it's like a medium quality, maybe isn't the best quality, but as you can see, it doesn't it does absorb pretty well, and it doesn't just like flow out into one blob. So if I do put darker somewhere, the darker stays there, and that's what you're, you know, if you don't have that paper, it might turn out looking more like a blob. So now I'm just coming in with more of concentrated olive green. I actually have that in the palette. I didn't make it myself, it just came with the colors. So I'm just adding that with less water. I'm just going to add it to some of the leaves, again, to vary it up. Add a few more of those stems maybe, or some leaves on those stems. And I'm going to make a few rosebuds in different places. Wherever you feel that it needs a little more color and you happen to have a stem, or you could add a stem. So I'm adding some on the right there, I might add one on the left. And then I'm going to put some of that darker pink kind of on the ends, just to make it less, not one color. And then let's see what I'm probably going to use that pink as well in the center of the flowers in a second. Or maybe add a few more stems. So that one kind of dried, so I'm going to be careful because I don't want to add too much because it's not going to really bleed out, so I don't want it to look unnatural. And then, but the flower on the right had more water, so that one, it'll bleed a little more. And then again, I'm going to add a few more stems in different spots with the darker, a concentrated olive green, just to make it, look more natural, like if it were actually in a field or in a garden. And then that's it. Enjoy, and come back to the channel to view more.